Hi, everyone. I am Attorney Lilian with Lily Legal, where we help our clients get immigration status for themselves and for their families using the U.S. immigration law system. If you would like to have a one on one time with me, either through Zoom or in person, please feel free to reach out through my website, lilylegal.com, or by calling my office at 508 443 1788. You can also reach us on WhatsApp with that same number. Okay? So, today today, I am going to be going over the questions I get on VAWA. I get so many questions every single time I talk about VAWA that I decided to just do a video where we go through those questions, make sure that you know what's going on, that your questions are answered. So thank you for joining me. If you are watching this on the replay, thank you so much. You can put your questions in the comments. If you have any questions, it can be about VAWA or any other immigration topic. Especially if you're watching live, please put your questions in the comments so that I can respond to you. And if you're watching in the replay, remember you can always put your questions in the comments, and I always go back and respond. Okay. So, like I said, today we are going to be going over questions about VAWA. I get a lot of these, and I thought the best way to tackle them is to do a whole video where we answer the questions. Okay, if you are just joining me, feel free to say hi in the comments. Let me know where you are joining me from. It is 12 o'clock here in the East Coast of the US. So tell me where you're joining me from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing where people are joining me from. So thank you so much for joining. Now, we are going to get right into these because I have a lot to go over. There were a lot of questions. I want to make sure that I get through all of them. Okay. So, first question I always get is what is VAWA and how do I even know if I qualify? Well, VAWA stands for Violence Against Women Act. Again, Violence Against Women Act. That act was basically put in place to address domestic violence. Initially was based on addressing domestic violence against women. However, we have grown as a society to know that domestic violence does not just happen to women, it also happens to all genders. So it has been expanded to include everyone, anyone that suffers domestic violence. In the hands of their partner can basically falls under VAWA. Okay, so how do you qualify for a green card under VAWA? That's what everyone wants to know. Well, one, you have to be married or have been married to a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. Your U.S. citizen or permanent resident spouse had to have abused you, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual, financial. If you watched my last video, you know we talked about the different types of abuse and examples. So feel free to go and watch that to get a deeper understanding of the different types of abuse that can fall under VAWA. So you have to show that you were married to a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. You suffered abuse on the hands of your U.S. citizen or permanent resident spouse, that you and your spouse lived together. It does not matter if you still live together, but that you lived together while you were married. Okay. And that your marriage was entered into in good faith. And finally, that you, the person that's applying for VAWA, has good moral character. Most of the time, that means that you do not have a criminal history that would affect a finding of good moral character. Okay, so that is the basic requirements for VAWA. I do have other videos where I go in depth on each of those and basically explain more what all of those things are. But today we're going to be answering your questions. So, next question I get is what if I was married but now I am divorced. Can I still apply for VAWA? Well, the short answer is it depends, right? If you divorced yesterday and you want to apply for VAWA today, well, yes, you can. However, if your divorce became final, right? Not the day that you filed, but the day that the divorce actually became final. If that was 2 years ago, unfortunately, you no longer fit within the time frame for VAWA. So once you get a divorce, you have 2 years, right? From the day your divorce becomes final to the day that you file to get your application for VAWA in. So this is limiting for people that don't even understand that they suffered abuse during their marriage and are now realizing that what they have been through. So for those people, unfortunately, once it's been over 2 years since that divorce became final, they no longer qualify under VAWA. However, there may be other options available to them. So it's always important that before you make any decisions as far as your immigration status is concerned, to speak to an immigration lawyer to make sure that either you qualify for a specific status or that you don't. You might have other options available to you. So it's really important that you take the time and meet with an immigration lawyer before you make those decisions. So that's why I always tell people it doesn't matter what you think you qualify for, because you're not qualified to decide if you qualify or not. Okay. So I went to school for several years, law school for several years, practicing for several years, and I have this knowledge of um, how someone qualifies for different things. So it's really important that before you decide that you don't qualify, um, for any immigration status, that you speak with a lawyer first, okay? Because we have experience and we might know things that is not readily available. I try to give you as much information as I can here. However, without knowing your personal history and your personal story, I am not able to actually tell you whether you qualify or not. Okay, so that's why the meeting with a lawyer is really important. The next question I get is, what if my spouse has passed away? So we didn't get a divorce, he passed away or she passed away. What are my options? Well, again, depends on how long ago. There's other options available. There's also, in addition to the abuse, so VAWA has the abuse element. However, there's also an application specific for widows and widowers. So you may qualify under that. So there's other options that may be available to you, even if you don't fall into the VAWA category and your spouse has passed away. There is the widow and widower category. Again, those have time limits. You have to look at how long ago your spouse passed away. Okay, that's something we need to calculate and determine if you are still within that window. Okay, so if you are just joining me, hi, welcome. Feel free to tell me where you're watching from. And also, feel free to ask me questions in the comments. That's why I'm here live every single Friday to answer your questions. So please feel free to do that. Today, I'm going to be answering the questions I have received on VAWA. If you have been watching my page for a while, you know that I have done several videos on VAWA and I have received a lot of questions. So I wanted to do a whole video where I answer all those questions. So feel free, feel free to ask me all your questions. Okay. And let me just see who's watching. Hi, Edward, watching from Monrovia. Welcome, welcome. And then Faith, thank you so much for joining. I am so happy to see you. Now, Again, if you're just joining, feel free to say hi in the comments. Tell me where you're from. And most importantly, ask me your questions, okay? I want to make sure that you are getting the immigration information that you need. I don't want you to leave here not having your questions answered. If you have the question, that means someone else probably has the same question, and we want to help each other and make sure that we are um, answering questions that are relevant to us as immigrants. Okay. So the next question is how long must one be married to the abuser before they can file for VAWA benefits? So this is always a tricky question. So if you are married, just know if you're doing VAWA, one of the requirements is that you and your spouse are married or were married, that you lived together, that the abuse occurred during the marriage. Okay. So those are the requirements. None of that requirement says you have to be married for 3 years or you have to be married for a year before you can apply. No, that's not the requirements. The requirements are you have to have been married to a US citizen or permanent resident. They have to have abused you during the marriage, and you have to have lived together during your marriage. Those are the requirements. There is no length of time that you have to be married for in order for you to apply for VAWA. Okay. It might be harder for you to have certain documentation if it's a short marriage. However, it is not impossible for you to apply for VAWA with less documentation. There is other ways to supplement it. So again, I work with clients that may not have all the documentation in the world. However, we are still able to work with what they have and basically find other ways to supplement what they already have. So, again, you don't have to be married for X amount of years in order to qualify for VAWA. Okay. There's no length of time that is required. Okay. You just have to meet the requirements, the actual requirements. X amount of years of marriage is not a requirement. Okay. So I wanted to cover that because I get that question all the time. And I have seen people with very short term marriages. I have seen people where they got married, you know, the first month was great. By the second or third month, there's been physical abuse, there's been police called, there's been restraining orders. Like all of that can happen in a very short amount of time. So that's why VAWA does not have a length of marriage requirement, because you can go from happily married one day to intensely abused the next. So they do not have that requirement, just so they can protect the person that's being abused. Okay. So the next question is, and I get this all the time. Okay. This is one of the fears that people have when they have been abused and now they want to basically um, use VAWA as a way to get their freedom, and they are not sure if they will be protected. So the question is, what happens to the abuser once you file for VAWA? Are there any consequences for them? Okay, so that is the question. What happens to the abuser? Do they have any consequences that happen once you file for VAWA? And the short answer is nothing, right? Because VAWA, the whole premise of you being able to apply for VAWA is that it will be confidential, right? Your spouse has no right to know that you filed for VAWA. So from the time you walk into my office, right? So let me just share with you how confidential the whole thing is. From the time that you walk into my office, you are protected by attorney client privilege. So that means whatever we talk about, the fact that you're even there is privilege. I am not allowed to tell someone that you are my client. You can tell them. However, I am not allowed to confirm or deny that you're my client. I am not allowed to tell someone that you are applying for VAWA. I am not allowed to tell anyone that you are applying for anything. So the second you walk into my office for a consultation, whatever we talk about is confidential. When we file your VAWA application with USCIS, it is confidential. Legally, USCIS is not allowed to share the fact that you apply for VAWA with your abuser. Okay? USCIS is not allowed to share the fact that you apply for VAWA with your abuser. And they make it easy for you to have a safe mailing address. So when you file for VAWA, you can have a safe mailing address. So this is typically if you are still living with your abuser while you're applying for VAWA. If you're in that situation, you can have a safe mailing address so that your letters from USCIS does not come to your home. Okay, so that way your abuser does not accidentally see that you're applying for benefits and open your mail and see that you're applying for VAWA. Okay, so that's something for every single one of my clients. We do a safe mailing address so that your mail is never going to the address that you are sharing with your abuser. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. So USCIS is not allowed to share your information. You can have a safe mailing address, and I am not allowed to share your information. Okay. So that creates protection for you when you're applying for VAWA. Your abusive spouse will not know that you're applying, and you are able to safely apply without risking more abuse. Okay. Because of the confidentiality requirements, USCIS cannot file charges against your spouse. That is your decision. So you can choose to file charges, to file a police report against your abusive spouse. USCIS will not do that. So, and the information that you provide to USCIS is not open to the public. So it's not like when they do a Corey check or a Carey check. If you're in Massachusetts, it's basically a background check to see if you have any restraining orders, any criminal history. The Carey check also does if there's any abuse orders, abuse prevention orders as well. So all of those things, the VAWA application will not show up on that person's Corey or Carey checks. So again, that's because there is confidentiality in place to make sure that your abuser does not find out that you're applying for VAWA. Okay, so I just wanted to take a few minutes and cover that because I get the fear that people have when they come to me and want to apply for VAWA because they are still, especially if they are still in a situation where they're still living with their abuser, they definitely want to make sure that nothing is coming to them, that their abuser is not able to find out what they're doing. And we put safeguards in place. For example, not calling the client and leaving a voicemail, right? Because once you leave a voicemail, it can trigger certain things. So if I leave a voicemail for a client that's filing for VAWA and I say, hey, this is Attorney Lilian from Lily Legal, and their spouse hears that, now they can look up Lily Legal, look me up, see that I'm an immigration lawyer, and that can lead to questioning of my client and other issues. So there is definitely safeguards that you and your lawyer can put in place to make sure that you are not exposing yourself to more abuse. Okay, so all right, so the next question is, and this is a long one, and I want to cover this because I get this all the time from people that do not like that VAWA exists, right? That VAWA is a way for people to get a green card. So I'm going to read the entire question and then I'm going to give you my response. Okay. It is, I am married to an immigrant who was having an affair with someone else our entire marriage. He only got married to me for the sake of a green card. I found out he was trying to petition for himself by pretending he is a battered spouse. So, what can I do to stop it? All right. So, when it comes to VAWA, right, you have to prove that you were actually abused. Right? You have to prove it. And in my last video, I went over all the different types of abuse, from physical to financial to emotional, to psychological, to sexual. We talked about all the different types of abuse with examples. And USCIS knows what the different types of abuse are, and they are looking to basically prove, for you to prove that you have been abused. And if you are able to prove that you have been abused and you meet all the other requirements, you are more likely to get your case approved. Also, USCIS is basically trained to second guess every single application, right? Any application that comes in, they're looking at it as, oh, let's see if this even is abuse that rises to the level that someone can get VAWA for. So not every single type of abuse, not every single incident of abuse will lead to VAWA, right? Would lead to someone being able to get VAWA, green card through VAWA. Okay. However, okay. However, a person, a single incident. So let's say a single incident of physical abuse could lead to someone being able to get VAWA protection. So my response to this person is, what can they do? They have to trust that USCIS knows how to do their job, and there is safeguards in place to make sure that only people that actually qualify for VAWA are getting VAWA. Like I tell people, it's not every single, argument that you have with your spouse is considered abuse under USCIS definition of abuse under VAWA. So it's really about documenting the case. If they are able to prove that you abused them, whether the abuser thinks that they were abusive or not, if the person can prove that they were abused, then they have proven they have met their burden. So the abuse, like I said, I always get this question from the US citizen or permanent resident spouse of someone that wants to apply for VAWA, and they want to know, how can I stop them from getting any immigration benefits? And the truth is, if you, just because you, the abuser, does not think that you abused the person, that does not mean that the person was not abused by you. Okay, so we all have different definitions or thresholds of what we consider abuse. However, there are distinct definitions out there, examples out there of what abuse looks like. It might not look like abuse to you, however, to someone else, it could be abuse. So it's really important that we know that there's safeguards in place at USCIS to weed out the cases that are not real, and then there's safeguards in place to make sure that people that do truly have a case of abuse by US citizen or permanent resident are able to get VAWA benefits. Okay. The next question I always get is, what is the sequence of events? What can I expect once I file for VAWA? And this is one of my favorite questions. So basically, we start by getting all your information, filing the VAWA application. Now, if your spouse is a US citizen or a permanent resident and the priority date is current, we're able to also apply for a green card for you. Again, that's if you qualify for a green card. So you can apply for VAWA without a green card application if you do not qualify for a green card. So I just want to make sure that is clear. So you've applied for VAWA, apply for a green card if you qualify, apply for work authorization for the green card, and from there, we wait. We get the receipt notice, we get the fingerprint notice. Once you get the fingerprint notice, that means your case is moving. The green card application and the work authorization are handled by different offices. The VAWA application is handled by a specific office in Vermont, and that is the only office that handles VAWA cases from around the US. So they decide if you qualify for VAWA. So once you file, they'll process your application. They'll look at your application and decide if you can be pre-approved. So this is a prima facie approval. This basically says, we think there's enough here to approve your case, but we want to look into it more. So we're going to basically pre-approve you. The pre-approval gives you the benefit of, if you need government assistance while you're waiting for your work authorization, you're able to use that pre-approval to get the assistance that you need. I see this a lot for some of my clients that may need a shelter, right? That may need to be in a shelter, that may need housing. They once they get this pre-approval, they're able to get housing benefits. So it's really important that we talk about the steps, right? So once you get the pre-approval, then we're waiting for the actual approval, the green card, the work authorization. You will get the work authorization before the green card and the VAWA approval, because it does take time. VAWA approvals can take anywhere from a year to a year and a half to be approved. So you are waiting quite a while. So what I typically suggest is, if you do qualify for a green card, we go ahead and apply for that so that you can get a work authorization while you're waiting, be able to work and support yourself, and basically start building, start creating a plan for your freedom. If you are still with your spouse, or if you haven't been with your spouse and now you want to start really building your life after the abuse, this gives you that option. Okay, so we basically do a whole breakdown of what the steps are. Once your VAWA is approved, your green card application can be processed. You can go to your interview. Once your interview is done and you are approved, you typically get your card in the mail within a month of the approval, and you are done. Okay, now you're a green card holder. Your next step is to apply for citizenship once you qualify for citizenship. So you can either do 3 years if you're still, since your vow is through marriage, or you can wait the 5 years so that your citizenship has no connection to the marriage. So it is really up to you when it comes to the citizenship part, but that is the basic process for applying for VAWA, the steps that will happen after you file, and the benefits that you get along the way, like the pre approval and the work authorization. Now, the next question is always, what if I do not qualify for a green card? So, what if I came in without authorization? I walked in across the border, or I came in with someone else's passport. I am here without proper entry into the US. Can I still apply for a green card? And the issue there is, technically, you can. You would need a waiver. in order to apply for a green card. You will need a waiver in order to apply for a green card. Now, if you entered without any sort of authorization, you didn't come through the airport, you didn't come with someone else's passport, you just walked across the border, you are going to have a harder time than some people, right? You would need a waiver that allows you to leave the U.S., go to your interview outside of the U.S., and come back in. Okay, you there is so with that you can waive. That's the thing with VAWA, right? Typically, if you are applying for a green card and you did not come in with authorization, you have to leave the US in order to get status. However, with VAWA, you have a specific advantage that you do not have to leave the US, but you do have to qualify for a waiver and be approved in the US in order to get a green card. However, if you do not want to get a green card, your VAWA status, once it's approved, allows you to work in the US, allows you to get a work authorization and continue working and living in the US. So if that is enough for you, you can stop there and just live and work in the US, knowing that you have deferred action, meaning that US immigration will not try to get you out of the US, right? But you still have to qualify for a green card in order to apply for that. So that's always a tricky situation when it comes to VAWA, is that someone may qualify for VAWA on its own and would not qualify for actually getting a green card. So remember, if you're able to get VAWA on its own, you'll be able to work and live in the US. If you qualify for a green card, now you will be able to get permanent residency, be able to travel, and be able to become a citizen. So those are the benefits that you can get, whether you're just doing VAWA or if you're doing VAWA in combination with a green card. Okay, so I hope I answered the questions some of you may have. If you have any questions, as always, go ahead and put it in the comments. If you're watching in the replay, go ahead and put your questions in the comment. I am always happy to go back and respond to you. If you have any questions about this or anything else, you can book a time to talk to me over Zoom or in person by going to lilylegal.com or by calling my office at 508-443-1788. And as always, all my contact information will be in the description for this video. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your time. And remember, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this video with them. If you are listening in a place where you can subscribe, like my YouTube channel, and you don't want to miss anything, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Once again, I am Lilian Chukura. I am a U.S. immigration attorney and the owner of Lily Legal, where we help our clients get status using U.S. immigration laws. So thank you so much for your time today, and I will see you next week, Friday, for more immigration chat. Bye for now.